So Magneto, you can't make things up on Magneto. He's a Holocaust survivor. The great thing about X-Men is that if you know its history, you know it's rich in diversity, and you also know it's rich in racism. But instead of being black and white, they decided to make it humans against mutants. So it's the same concept, but only it's modeled after different. It's the same concept, but it's like instead of coming out and saying black against white or suppression against hatred and all this other stuff, they made it more under the guidelines so they can get away with it. Because let's keep it 100 right now. Racism and suppression and all this other stuff are a very touchy subject. It triggers people. It gets people upset for all the right reasons too. Like, it's a big deal. And X-Men has always been one of those controversial comics. Magneto, a fun fact, I do know this, that Magneto and Professor X were actually modeled after Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. And if I had to take a guess, I guess Professor X was more Martin Luther King, and then Malcolm X was more of Magneto. Because they both had the same concept, but Magneto took more charge. You know what I'm saying? Like, Magneto was more of that mutant to take charge and be like, I'm tired of being suppressed. I was in a frigging in a Holocaust. I have numbers on my arm. I know how it is to be suppressed, and I'm fighting back. I'm not gonna take this willingly and nice, and I'm not gonna take this where if you look back where Malcolm X was, he fought more physically, like he was willing to go that distance. He had the fruit of Islam behind him. Remember that. Where Martin Luther King, he fought, but he fought with words. And one of the great things that I always thought was very impressive with Martin Luther King is that I wasn't born, I wasn't around when he was around, but I'm just going by what history and what the books have said. So if you personally knew him or you have family members that personally know him, don't butcher me in the comments and say, oh, well, you weren't around, you didn't know it. I can just tell you what I've learned when I was in school, when I read. We didn't have YouTube, we didn't have Twitter, we didn't have the internet. We pretty much had books, libraries. This is what we read. This is what we were taught. We were taught that Martin Luther King, he would get hot coffee spilled on him, and he wouldn't retaliate. But he did protest. He did get arrested because he protested in a very peaceful way, and they arrested him. He got out. But think about this. Think about how powerful Martin Luther King Jr. was. He had over 1 million people standing while he was doing his ovation, when he was talking, when he was doing his speech. Black, white, Spanish, Hispanic, Chinese, whatever. Nobody in that crowd fought. And I really do believe that that's what caused the government to say, oh, whoa, wait a minute, this guy's dangerous. Like, we can't have him bringing all these people together. And his words are so powerful, we have to do it by force. And this guy's doing it with just words. And the government, in my opinion, I'm not saying this really happened because, like I said, I wasn't there, but all things point to the government had to get rid of, back then, about Martin Luther King being who he was. He was a very strong person. And I'm not saying Malcolm X wasn't. They both had different ways to get to the same ideology that they wanted to. They had the same goal. They just went around it in a different way. Malcolm X was a great leader, and Martin Luther King Jr. was a great leader. They both had different ways to go about it. And you can't have neither one of them in the histories without one or the other. So you need to have, I actually think that was a yin and yang kind of thing. So the Professor X and the Magneto, I thought that was very smart of them to put that in at that time to really push the envelope of what's really happening in the world. That's why X-Men has always been a great, I think it's always been great to have the X-Men because it has a lot of diversity. There's a lot of confrontational and controversy around it. I couldn't say that word for a reason. I don't know why. But I really do believe that the X-Men really helps a lot of people out in their point in their life, especially when you're reading and stuff. So with that being said, we are looking for, I knew it was 38, who's 39? Well, let's look at our Thanos. You want to talk about a tyrant? You know, if anything, this guy, they made him out to be more of a hero in the movie. Like, they made him out to be more justified in his killing. When the comics, he did it just to impress death. That's right. He killed all those beings, all the living beings, just to impress death. Yes. So they made him into be more than what he was. I never really liked that. But hey, it is what it is. So you want to talk about Hitler or something like that? I would say Thanos is pretty much the closest you can get to that. Okay, so then let's look at Bane. Bane. Where the hell's Bane? So Bane, I'm not even going to talk about these conditions of these cards. These cards are all messed up. But Bane was a great character. They make him to be stupid in the movies and stuff, but in the comics, he's not stupid. He's very smart. He's the one who broke Batman's back. Bane is a force to be reckoned with, and I believe when he broke Batman's back, Azrael took over for him. So, yeah. Like I said, I'm not a fan of DC Comics, so I don't know to the extent of his background and origins, so I'll leave it at that. All right. So Black Adam, the arch enemy of Captain Marvel, or in this case, Shazam. He, you know, the great thing about him is that it took the whole Justice League to really beat him up. Superman can't do it on his own. Black Adam stays in God form 24/7. He never goes back. He's been in that so long that he'll never go back. So, the extent to my knowledge of Black Adam, he was basically, in his own mind, he wanted to be the hero. And, you know, then Shazam came along and he decided to give Shazam the powers to Billy Bastion and Madison, and that drove him over the edge. And he was supposed to be the chosen one, but Shazam's the chosen one, so I don't know. It's kind of a convoluted mess, but it's a cliche of why he's really a villain. I don't even know where. I'm just gonna put these right here. So, circle. Do we even have to? Oh yeah, here she is. So Circle's an interesting character. She's a sorcerer. I don't know too much about her. Like I said, if I'm not a big fan of the character, I choose not to learn too much about it. But I do know that she's a sorcerer. So I know that she had something to do with Loki and Thor. But that's my extent to my knowledge. So Darkseid, 43. Again, I think he was a part of the New Gods. He, or the leader of the New Gods, decided to send his son Orion over to him, and then he sent somebody else over to the New Gods, so they exchanged babies as like a peace offering. Or Orion went over to New Gods. It was one of those. I don't remember exactly how it is. Again, this is DC. I'm not too familiar with DC. But Darkseid was definitely made by Jack Kirby. Jack Kirby made the New Gods. Jack Kirby made Darkseid. If you don't know who Jack Kirby is, please look him up. He's stupendous. He was one of the best, if not the godfather of comics. Anyway, Darkseid, you need him. He's definitely he rules the planet of his. I don't remember what the planet was called, but he's in my opinion, he's more strong than Superman. I mean, you need Justice League order to fight him, to really beat him. So Polaris. So this is Polaris. This is another DC character. I don't know too much about him. I'm not going to pretend to know too much about him. I do know that he does do the same thing that Magneto does. So I guess that's their version of Magneto. Again, I don't know too much about him, so I'm not going to speak too much about him. That's 44. 44. 45. So Joker. There's nothing to say about the Joker. He's psychotic, he's crazy, but I think he's just made from the same coin as Batman. Like, he's yin and yang. The Joker needs Batman, Batman needs Joker. Unfortunately, I think that's what it is. I mean, Joker has been a staple in Batman and DC forever. So. This whole thing is messed up. I don't know what this is. So Aquaman and Namor. So in this one, they said Aquaman beat Namor. I don't think that's possible because they say that Namor in the water is just as strong as the Hulk. Again, I don't know too much about Aquaman. Maybe they gave him new powers. But in this one, they said Aquaman beat Namor. I don't agree with that. I think Namor, hands down, would take out Aquaman. Just in my opinion. But like I said, this was voted by fans. So maybe the fans knew something I didn't know. But you have to remember, I'm also biased. I'm biased against characters that I do know. And I'm biased against, like, I'm a big fan of Marvel. But I don't think every Marvel character can beat DC. I'm not that stupid. But in this instant, I think Namor will win. Alright. Cadabra. I don't know if he's a time traveler or if he's into magic. he's a DC character. I don't know too much about him, so maybe that's something that you guys can look up if you're interested. Again, I don't know too much about him. But Killer Croc, man. I do know about Killer Croc. I know that he used to be part of the circus. He used to be part of like a freak show, and I know that him being who he, like he decided, because he's tired of people picking on him, and Batman, although what he did wasn't right, him being a killer and whatnot, that's why it's called Killer Croc. So Batman took care of him. But he's an interesting character. I always like Killer Croc. Pretty cool. So, Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor he's the bad boy of DC. Like, I honestly think that in his own way, he's trying to do what's right for his utopia in his own mind. So he's like an anti-hero. Very intelligent, very powerful. I put him up there with Norman Osborn. I think that would have been a better fight, him against Norman Osborn. I think he's very more intelligent. But they have him fighting the Kingpin. The Kingpin, yes, his plan was to take over the city and possibly the world. But Lex Luthor's plan was always been about taking over the world. And I think Norman Osborn would have been a better candidate for at least taking him on within the mind, because he became president. Norman Osborn became president. I think that would have been a better fight. And you know what? I don't know when the Civil War happened, though. Let me go down in the comments when the Civil War happened, when he became president, because I know he became president. So that could have happened way after all this. So maybe that's why they decided to put him as fighting Kingpin. Sorry, everything's all mixed up. So we got the Penguin next. The Penguin. Not too much of a fan of Penguin, I have to say. I think they just threw him in there because he's been around for such a long time, and he's been part of Batman forever. Other than that, I don't really care or interested in him, to be honest. So now, here we got Archangel versus Hawkman. And this is one of those fights where I would lean towards, when I was very ignorant, I said Archangel would win. And that's only because I was very biased. Now that I've read Hawkman, and I realize how strong he is, Archangel does not stand a chance. I love Archangel. I think he's a great, he was part of the Apocalypse 4 Horsemen, which was, I think he helped guide the 4 Horsemen. I don't think he was part of it, because then that would make it 5 Horsemen. I don't know. Anyway, the whole point is, Hawkman wins this, hands down. I have my money on Hawkman. So you got Azrael versus Sabertooth. This is a very interesting fight. Why? Because I think it's a really good fight. And I really do believe that Azrael will put up a fight, but I think at the end, unless he tricked Sabertooth and knocked him out. But in my opinion, Sabertooth would win this, because Sabertooth is 6'4", and you could even say, well, height really doesn't matter, size really doesn't matter, right? But they make Sabertooth out to be stupid, and he's not very stupid when it comes to fighting. He's actually very strategic. So think about all the years that he's been fighting Wolverine. He's been fighting somebody like Batman for years. So him taking on Azrael, I don't know. He's good, but he's not Batman level. Of course he's Batman level because he was Batman, but I still have money on Sabertooth. You can disagree with me all you want. Again, this was a fan. The fans voted, and in this one, they said Azrael wins. Still a good fight, though. All right, so this is another fight I could care less about: Black Widow and Black Canary. If I would say, I mean, either one of them, I really don't care. I mean, people could say, oh, well, she could put something in her ears to stop Black Canary from using her sonic waves, and, you know, and they have Black Widow winning. Maybe Black Widow would win on this one just because she might be a little bit more with the fighting. Again, this is another thing I really don't care about. I never cared about these two. I never cared about Black Widow, never cared about Black Canary. The only reason I like Black Canary at all is because of Green Arrow. So anyway. So this is a pretty interesting fight. They have Blue Beetle versus Spider-Woman. They said in this one, Blue Beetle would win. I would agree with that. Spider-Woman, she was part of the West Coast Avengers. I think she was a love interest of Iron Man at one time, or Tony Stark's at one time. Blue Beetle's a scientist. I mean, he's like another Batman, but he's like not Batman fighting. Like, he's like, you know, I'd put him up there with, like, you know, Batman, Spider-Man. Okay, fine. He has more of a mind like Spider-Man. Let's just say it like that. So Blue Beetle is, I can see Blue Beetle winning this. Again, these characters are not one of my top favorites. I do like Blue Beetle, though. I've always liked Blue Beetle, but I never really sat down and studied his past, studied his origins. But I do know enough to know that his intelligence is definitely up there with some of the greatest minds in DC. So. So this is another controversial card. I used to believe that Lobo would win this. And I think over due time, Lobo would win. But if we're talking about straight up killing somebody just to kill them, to get it over with quick, Wolverine would win this. Lobo takes this as a game too much. He would toy with Wolverine. He would get Wolverine pissed off, and I think he would underestimate Wolverine, and then Wolverine would probably surprise him and cut his head off. But because Lobo's immortal, he'll just come back. The thing is, Wolverine would win. Maybe the first 2, maybe 3 times. I could see him winning. But as soon as Lobo figures out, you know, that he's not playing around, you have to remember that Lobo is also smart. He's a bounty hunter. But again, this is fan service. This is fans voted for this. But reading Lobo and knowing Wolverine, Lobo would probably toy with Wolverine and not really, he would never really fight Wolverine full out. Like, he would just toy with Wolverine, and I think in this instant Wolverine would like chop his head off because Lobo would underestimate him. So in this perspective, Wolverine would win just because Lobo's arrogance and he would underestimate Wolverine. Again, you can't take this fight serious. I can't look at Lobo and take this serious. When you look at Lobo, you don't take any fight serious. You don't see him fighting Superman and being like, oh, this is a serious fight. Even when he fought Superman, he wasn't serious. Well, like, Lobo's never serious. He's like fighting the Mask. You know, like, there's nothing serious about Lobo. That's why he's such a great character. He's so overpowered, but he doesn't really take anything, like, he doesn't really care.